Okay, I'd like to call to order the audit committee meeting of November 1st, 2011. Louise, can we have?
We have the recorder.
Yeah.
You have it right behind you.
We are recording, yes.
Oh, she has to record.
Yeah, but she needs to do her recording. Okay.
What Teresa, yeah.
Right, okay. I'd like to call to order the audit committee meeting of November 1st, 2011. Louise, could we have roll call, please?
Sure. Mayor Dobbin,
Here.
Vice Mayor Whitmer,
Here.
Rose Hart,
Here?
Jim Mackey,
Here.
Wendy Land,
Here.
Ray Collins is not here yet. Okay.
Okay, before we move on, I'd like to take a moment to talk about Louise and express at least my appreciation for her service with the town of Atherton. She has served this town well, and she came at a time when the financial department was pretty much in turmoil. She turned it around, got the numbers in order, helped us all understand where the town is now presently, and is a workhorse. You know, I will say that there are times when I email her at 8 o'clock just because that's when I'm reading something at night. And I'll ask her a question thinking she will answer me in the morning, and I get a response. I usually get a response right away. So I'll ask her, what are you doing? And she says, oh, I'm still working, tying up some loose ends. And that happens more often than not. So again, you know, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for your patience with me and the rest of the town and putting everything in order. And you will be sorely missed. And I'm sure you'll be getting a lot of phone calls, you know, asking questions from us of where we stand and what to do and how to move forward.
And it says Louise's agent is $1,000
Okay, is that it? Okay. Well, I would say you're well represented.
That's the
You
rate
have
we're putting out. Louise and I are going to business.
Well, can I do something too? But anyway,
I just like.
thank you so much, Louise. So without further ado.
Louise, I would just like.
Next item, public comments. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that I'm really sorry to see Louise leave.
Yeah,
And,
me too.
as Rose says, you've been a workhorse. I've called you at 7 o'clock at night and you've answered the phone. And, you know, I'm really sorry to see Louise leave. I know that you're probably looking forward to a much easier time, but I'm really sorry to see you go.
I'm going to sorely miss the audit committee.
Oh, I can't believe
It is. People may think I'm crazy, but I actually enjoy the challenge of working here and all the challenge from the council and every day make my days. I'm going to be so bored at home. Well, soon I may have to do something.
Well, you'll find, knowing you will do something. Yeah, and I don't think you're going to
That's
do
about
something.
18 days, just not.
Yeah, it's not
That's
that.
about the length of my vacation.
Okay, Bill, this is not the place. And you know, as you went on, not to mention her honesty and integrity, and you know, she sticks to the books, and you can always count on her for a straight answer and forthrightness. So again, I could go on, but I think we need to cut it, you know, short for a while, at least for this meeting. The next meeting will go on again.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda. Public comments. Seeing if there's no public here, we'll move on to the next item.
Hold on up here.
Well,
He's taking. Is he public or is he's with the town? He's taking.
he's
The
filming us.
As an employee or as a citizen? Well, just ask him if he has a comment. That's probably easy.
Do you have a comment?
I have no comment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
move
you.
on to the third item. Okay, the approval of the minutes of the June 16th meeting. Do we have any corrections, comments, changes? If not, who would like to
I
move?
move that we approve the minutes.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Okay, and I do have one item comment to add to the minute. And from the last meeting, the committee asked for our external auditor to look into auditing the property tax formula in the county of San Mateo. And I did have a conversation with Mark Wong. These firms can certainly do the work, but they are not in the business of really auditing the counties, specifically the property tax formula. So it may not be cost benefit efficient for their firm to do that kind of review. And if the committee or the council decide to go forward, we may have to look into maybe other firm that can be more in line of doing that kind of business. I just want to report.
Thank you.
Well, how much of a job do you think it is?
Because, pardon?
How much time do you think it would take?
Because I think the formulas are pretty convoluted, so it's based on certain different assessment and different timing. So we can do it, but it's going to be a big learning curve for us, and it's not really our area of expertise in that.
Well, how do you know that we got the right amount of property taxes? What happens if the formula is all screwed up and we're getting 10% less than we should? Do you have any responsibility?
Yes, because right now, for the property tax, we do confirmation and
From the county?
from the county.
So you get separate confirmation
Correct.
that the amount you receive is valid as far as they're concerned?
Correct, yes. So we do revenue confirmation. We do not go back to recalculate.
Do they have an internal audit group?
For the county, the county has their own auditors, their own external auditors.
Well, I'm still concerned. We have $66 million base, and we're only getting $5 million. That just on the surface doesn't seem reasonable. So I just think we should do something. Hey, if you want, I'll donate a day of my time and go do it myself. And I'm a CPA. And
But what
Why
are the steps? Yeah,
why can't we write to the county's auditor and ask them for a report, and then we can then find out if we can get something special to do a contract with them.
Why don't we just write and say,
well, they've done it. They've written the county.
we're giving you 66 million, you're only giving us 5, would you please explain?
Yeah, that's good.
Well, that'd be a good way to start. And they say, well, it's very complicated. Say, well, good, we'll bring in 6 auditors. And they'll figure it out.
To me, that's the important part, you know?
Yeah.
We don't think, I would start off aggressively saying, we don't think we're getting enough of the money back that we're contributing, and we need to know why.
Yeah, and we'll just take it one step at a time. And if they come back with an explanation that's reasonable, then we can accept. If they don't, then we can take it to the next step, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So Jim, has this been consistent every year? I mean, the
This comes up
evaluation
regularly.
comes up regularly?
But we've never really looked at it closely.
So why don't we have a letter, you draft it and send it, because it can come from you, and I can get the ball rolling.
Great.
That's all right.
Yeah, I'm an auditor by background, and I just, when things don't
You know,
snow.
why don't you send me an email making sure I've got the numbers right, and then I'll send the letter to whoever it should go to.
Do you remember when we got the 66 million? I remember you gave us that number.
The information, if you want to look at the county's record and the calculation is to contact Ken Chen. He is the deputy controller in the controller's office. And I'll be happy to forward you his email address. Ken Chen.
Well, but do we have the numbers? I guess what Jim is looking for is, are we confirmed that the number is, it's 66 million, or if you can get the exact number, 66 million, and then we can pull from here the exact number that we're getting from the county, and then we say, this just doesn't make sense to us. Can we get confirmation, and can you
I don't want to look foolish, you got a letter.
Well, no, but I had the 66 million. Do you remember getting that, Louise? Because you provided it for us.
In October of every year, the county provide each individual cities and town and special district evaluation, which is how much is your land improvement and land and all that value. But then those are just evaluation. They go for an 88 factor, apportionment factor, to calculate what your share of the property tax is.
And that's our concern.
And that is complex because they involve pre-Prop 13 base, and after that, and on top of that, is on an allocation table, and we share a percentage. It's rather complex, like Mark Wong said, and you would have to go in and work with them. Is to just saying that we think you didn't pay us right, we have to.
Well, we didn't say that. We
Yeah.
just said it doesn't sound reasonable.
Well, what I'm saying is, I don't think I want to get into all these. I just want to be sure that the 66 million is the right number, and that the 5 million is the right number. Then I'll put the onus on them to say, how come? We should be getting more than that. and then let them explain it.
Right.
And I'll talk to you about getting
Okay,
the rest of the
okay.
things.
Okay.
Well, I think that's a good first step.
Yeah,
Okay.
Can we, you want a motion on that, or? just-
Yeah, let's make a motion. I'll make a motion that Jim writes a letter to the deputy controller regarding this assessment and get a clarification on where the town stands and justifying these numbers.
okay.
It's really the reasonableness of the allocation to our city.
Exactly, the accuracy.
A little bit of give and take, too much taking,
Second.
not enough
Thank you.
give.
And if the CBA can't figure it out, we'll have to hire a rocket scientist.
You may need a tax consultant.
Okay, so Louise is here for a few days, so that's.
Louise is available, $1,000. Did you see the movie? I'll tell you, if you haven't seen it, the Margin Call? Because this guy was questioning this clerk who did all these calculations, and they asked him what his background was. He said, well, I've got a master's degree in this and that, and I got a PhD in propulsion science. And he looked at him and he says, are you a rocket scientist? He said, yes, I am a rocket scientist. So they had a rocket scientist, and that's what they needed. So we may have to get one ourselves.
So I have a second on the motion.
Randy.
Okay, and you want to ask if all agree?
Oh, I forgot that part. Okay, everybody's talking so much. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you, Louise. Too much background noise.
Details.
Yeah, okay, see, she always puts you in your place. Okay, 4, review and approve draft 2010-11 audit reports. And I am going to turn that over to you to start the discussion.
Okay, I would like to have the committee look at your agenda packet. It's item 4. And in item 4, you're going to have 3 reports. The first one is item 4A. This is just a report from, a draft report from the auditor stating that our gain limit calculation is fine. And they did not find any significant error or anything, but they are not expressing an opinion. So this is just to say that we passed the gain limit test, right, Mark?
Correct.
Okay. So that would be 4A. 4B is our Measure A report. The town is required to issue a report because we are getting county Measure A money for transportation purpose. And this is an annual report we issue and send to Sam Tran to show compliance.
Now, that's B as in Baker,
4.
Yeah, 4B, yeah, B as in baby.
appropriation limit.
That's
It doesn't say anything about partial aid, but that's
That's-
what it's for.
That's 4A.
Measure A, special revenue report.
You need to go to 4B.
4B.
4B is about 2 pages.
Yes,
Okay.
because, you know, when I go before the Joint Powers Board, I argue that, you know, that we should be getting capital funds at least equal to Measure A. Now, is this, what is this Measure A sales tax? Is that strictly for our city?
That is for the entire county of San Mateo. The voter have approved Measure A for transportation purpose. So this audit is to indicate that we are spending the money in accordance with the agreements.
Is this money that they've given us or the money that our citizens have paid?
This is the money that people have spent and is coming through. The county collected and turn around and distribute that to all the cities and in San Mateo County.
I'm still not clear, I'm sorry. Is this the money that's allocated to us?
Yes.
On the formula again?
Yes, yes. And in fiscal year 2011, we have received from Measure A sale tax $264,583.
And this is pretty consistent from year to year? So can I say over the last 4 years, we've received $1 million?
Without the
Well,
year
assuming it's
history,
Relative,
yeah, relatively, yes.
Yes.
It's minimum, I would say 200,000.
And how much money have we received to spend for our capital expenditures?
For Measure A? Yeah,
That's what.
on this report, for fiscal year 2011, we received 264,583.
And you spent,
And we spent 334,236. And the project is listed about how the money was spent. So we actually used some of the money from prior years that have not been spent, about $68,000 $68,938 is coming from prior year's revenues.
So we got the reserve balance down to $367
Mhm.
from prior years?
Yes. And I think the purpose is to make sure this money is spent, and there may be even a timeline on when the money should be spent, but the Public Works Department is the former city engineer or Public Works Director, or our current interim Public Works Director is responsible for make sure the money is spent for its intended purpose.
But it goes through the council.
Mhm.
Council approves all
Yeah.
allocations. So
Yes.
if there's a goal, assume in terms of priorities and what you guys want to see happen.
In the
So
CIP
so if we
budget.
wanted to do that Watkins project, on the quad gates that we did here on Fair Oaks,
I don't think that would qualify as a part of the budget.
what is your understanding of what qualifies?
I cannot speak because I haven't really get into the detail on SRA. I think that question probably would be best answered by Public Works.
Yeah.
And maybe we should do that, because I'm beating on them every meeting, I go there every month, and I beat on them, and they're so unhappy with it, it's unbelievable.
Who's they? Who's the
The
they?
Joint Powers Board,
Oh.
and,
They're unhappy about what?
about, they say it costs $1.5 million to put it in the same configuration we have here at Fair Oaks,
Mhm.
and they paid for Fair Oaks on their own, and they're saying that they don't wanna do Watkins, and I say it's too dangerous not to do. And I just, looking for revenues,
Yeah.
if there's any way we could use them.
Well, I think Watkins is probably more dangerous than
Right.
Fair Oaks actually, because of that hump.
And because people turning left off of College, or this road here, what is it?
Station Road.
Station Road,
Yeah.
that it's dangerous. In fact, they switched at the last minute to Fair Oaks because there was more traffic on Fair Oaks. But I think you're right, it's more dangerous over there.
So when the town uses this fund for anything, do we go through the same procedure, going to the city council for at certain incremental amounts? Or is it used just based on somebody's discretion as in Public Works, or how is it allocated?
Ideally, all the spending of all these restricted funds, the Public Works Department should have listed in their capital improvement project budget as they present to the council for approval in June. All their projects should be listed and how the funding is going to, where the funding is going to come from. And the Public Works should go through and look at the priorities, and the council have the ultimate decision of which project they want to fund and which project they want to.
Yeah, we looked at those projects,
Okay.
and we were looking at what we should spend the money on, and we were looking at having the debate about the apportionment of the parcel tax, and we talked about that in the finance committee, and you were there.
Well, I don't remember that, because I always thought that we had 800,000 for the property and 400 or 500,000 for the police.
No, we went through, remember Duncan came through, because Duncan had proposed spending all the money, and he brought a list of projects, and, and we went through it. And-
60/40.
And then we made the split, and then Duncan said, okay, well, I'm gonna have to draw the line here, and we said, fine, that's what you're gonna need to do, and so,
Well, I didn't realize there was another 260,000 on top of that.
right.
So, it's more than just a
Well, do
230.
you think if you went to the committee and said, we've got 260,000, will you go off the other $1 million to build those gates? Think they?
And it would be, they're so sad, so unhappy seeing me, they probably would grab it. So I'm worth $1 million of history.
It's certainly worth a try.
And you can test to that today. If I get up on the wrong side of the bed, I can be pretty tough.
Even on the right side.
I guess it depends which side you're looking at.
Okay, so that's Measure A report.
Okay.
The next report, which is really the purpose of.
If I can interrupt just on the side.
Okay.
If the council would support that, I'm going there Thursday, but you don't have a meeting till 2 weeks.
No, and I think the other thing is when we sent the letter, we said that it was based on the basis that we weren't going to put any money into it.
Did we? Did we say that on?
Yeah, well, I don't know, we said it in the letter, but we said it at the council meeting.
Well, then I'll just say, if I can,
approve the letter.
if I
based
can
on
talk
the-
the council into doing it, I'll put it on a conditional basis.
Unfortunately, I think that many of the residents, this is just my own opinion, would rather have the money spent on
kids.
other road activities and other transportation activities, and even though I agree with you, it's an important issue.
Well,
I think that's the reason that we sent a letter saying we can't afford to do it.
Well,
I'll use my own judgment, because I won't commit to council to anything. I'll just say, I'll try and convince them.
yeah, I think that's a good thing. Look, I'm willing to go before the council, and I've had some private discussions, and we might be able to have some, contribute to it, to
I won't say that, I'll just say that I'll go to the council.
Well, isn't it better to have, I don't know you, so I don't mean to insult you, but isn't it better to have kind of a concerted effort starting at the council than having someone that's.
Well, they wrote a letter.
Kind of, all I'm saying is just irritating them. Not knowing your background or anything else, these groups get very, very, touchy-feely on this stuff, so.
They're beyond that.
Yeah.
Well, my
Our
concern
brand is, I mean, in my mind, they're hard to irritate.
I'll leave it to you then.
well, honestly, on this,
Hey, well, I'm gonna do something Thursday morning, I haven't figured out what, but I understand where you're coming from, and I'll respect what the letter said when you sent it to me.
and then the other thing I think that we need to consider before we look to do anything, and I realize it's not an agenda item, so I'll just be very brief. But the item with regards to that hump and kids riding their bikes that way, whether they can cut through the park to go to Encinal, if we ever get that resolved or what. But that's a dangerous situation, and I don't know that the quad gate actually fixes that. I think that there's something else needs to be done to that area, and we probably need to ask Public Works to come up with a solution, because if the library ends up, getting consummated out there as is the current plan, and we get that whole cut back so that the kids can ride their bikes to Encinal through the park, you're gonna have a lot of accidents there, because you can't see. And if you're in a car, you're up a little higher, but when you're in a bike, you can't see, and in the morning or at dusk, the kids are gonna get run over. So it's a terrible, terrible intersection, and that whole thing needs to be re-engineered.
I mean, even if they put two big mirrors there, that would be helpful.
Too big what?
Mirrors. So that kids, when they want.
Okay,
down-
let's,
Yeah, I got one comment, I agree with the mayor, that the citizens of this town would rather see the money spread around in the streets in front of their house and stuff, rather than on a gate over here. That the perception would be that it was paid for by Caltrans and not the citizens' taxes.
Yeah.
okay, let's move on, because this isn't on the agenda.
Yeah.
But it's good talk, let's put it
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Hey, I apologize, one last thought, Palo Alto did build an underpass to the medical center,
Yeah.
and, that would be
We should bring that up with Mike. I think that's what we should do.
That's really technically the only way,
Yeah.
above grade or below.
Yeah.
Otherwise, safety's not gonna.
Word politics 1A, fix the potholes.
Yeah.
recognize it first.
And we recognize it.
I'm sorry it takes so much
Okay,
time.
next, Louise.
No, next we're going to review item 4C, which is the meat of the item, is our draft basic financial statement for fiscal year 2011. I want to thank Mark Wong and his staff for doing a very efficient job we get this draft completed and everything almost ready to print. If the committee today is going to accept recommendation from staff to accept the report, and we'll put this audit report for council's approval in the December council meeting for the acceptance. Okay, let me just go through the audit report because it's and then I will ask Mark Wong if he has anything else to add. This is just a standard report. The juice of this report is on page 5, which is management discussion and analysis. And those,
What page are you on?
page 5. This is where we are explaining how we finished the
Wait.
year. Okay,
Oh, page 5 in the writing.
yes, yeah. Explaining kind of what is happening, what happened in fiscal year 2011, and have some comparison to fiscal year 2010. So, for the,
Are we allowed to ask questions?
yes,
Okay.
that's the whole purpose of the.
Good. That's what I figured. And I got some questions when we get to 4B,
Okay.
but
Okay,
on 4C,
I'm foreseeing, yes.
let's take a fund such as the library fund.
Okay.
okay? Which is highlighted on page, you talk about that beginning on page 16, okay?
Uh-huh.
And you show, and later on you show specifically that, and you have the deductions and things like that. I guess my question on this, as well as on things like the environmental committee, you know, we had that situation when the environmental committee had some money in the budget and they just went out and spent it and didn't adhere to any purchasing requirements and things like that. There was no sign off. Who actually is the monitor and gets some sort of accounting on the library funds, or on any of these special funds? I know that you're looking at them,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess the question is, if that's like library money, for
Right.
example,
Right.
does somebody from the library sign off on all the allocations and staff transfers that we do there?
Louise, I think.
Not me. Mike Kashiwagi is the one approving the invoice for the library fund.
But I think it's the library money. Shouldn't somebody in the library be doing that?
The library already basically went through the JPA and the library, but Mike Kashiwagi meet with them on a regular basis, and they hold their meeting. But from the town side, when finance pay the bill, Mike Kashiwagi
He signs off on the bill. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And Kathy is the council representative from the library.
Okay, so it's, well, I guess the question really is, who's really authorizing it? On all of these funds, is there an owner of the fund?
Right.
And then that owner actually makes sure that the funds and the staff transfers are done properly. And I use the library just as an example. The environmental committee was another one, which, you know, raised a bunch of eyebrows last year, as you know.
Mhm.
You rightfully brought it up, and you know, so I think that, you know, two things. First off, if it's money that the town has got control over, then of course the expenditure of that has got to be underneath the town's controlling policies,
Right.
to the extent that they exist. But then secondly, I think there's a responsible party for each of these, and that responsible party needs to get some sort of reconciliation.
Yeah, but the finance director, and my money, ought to have the final sign-off from all of these funds, including the library.
Who?
Yeah. Oh,
We got a chief financial officer, the chief financial officer.
Louise, or, you know,
Well, I think somebody, you know,
Successor.
yeah, I mean, my comment is that, and I can pick on the library because it's actually a different entity, they're not actually employees here, they're county.
Mhm.
And I would think that there would be some sort of accounting that we would send to them regularly.
We
so
do.
they would-
Not to the JPA, but at least to the attorney, to
So
his
Corinne
lawyer.
get something?
She never requested that, but we've been sending it to the.
Well, I got a
the
request
meeting.
from her.
Okay.
Okay, I got a request saying, who actually signs off on this stuff, because they want to make sure that their money's being spent, and they got questions about all the staff transfers.
How did the environmental committee get money?
it's allocated by the town.
Approved by
Approved by council?
They were allocated in, and they came in with invoices and
What
told
to do-
somebody to cut a check.
Do what? I mean, for what purpose?
That's-
I mean, I'm just curious, I'm not saying,
Well, what they did with the money in this last year is they set up this house monitoring
okay,
thing and built the website.
okay.
And, you know, made some marketing stuff that was sent to all the houses and, you know, signed some contracts with, I guess, the guy that actually has the technology.
So they came before council and said, we have a program, we think the town would benefit from it, could.
No, I don't
No,
know.
no, it didn't happen that way.
They didn't bother to do that. They
That's,
just went ahead and spent.
that was the issue,
Oh.
is that in the budgeting time, you know, council members that oversee that, you know, said we would like to go ahead and you know, Charles always had an earmark for the environmental committee, and so at budget time, we put in, you know, like last year, it was $20,000. And then lo and behold, I guess my understanding is one day, Valerie came in and just said, I need a check for $20,000 or something like that. And said, yes, you'll have to cut the check because we spent the money and we built the website and we did this.
Well, they shouldn't be doing purchasing. I mean,
Well, that's my point, and that's why I'm bringing this up.
Well,
So the $20,000 was already allocated to
In the
that.
budget.
That was spent last year.
It was spent last, no, it was in the fund, and then she came up and said, I need to check because we've done this already.
Well, yeah, but see, the
It
thing
was the
is-
same 20,000, it's not an additional 20,000.
No, it's not an
Okay.
additional 20,000, but
this year it's 5,000, so.
this year it's 5,000, and she raised her own 9,200 on top.
I still don't understand how they even got the original 20,000.
Well, my issue is this, and Jim, this is the
Okay, so
question.
the council did give it to them.
So but just because it's in the budget doesn't, and since it's city taxpayer dollars,
Right.
okay, it needs to be spent in accordance with the policies in which we spend all of our taxpayer dollars.
No. I agree.
So $20,000 is over $15,000, so there needed to be something that goes before either, if it was below $15,000, the city manager for his approval, or go before the council if it was more than $15,000 to 1 million.
Right, and that hasn't been done.
No, it was not.
And so, yeah,
I thought we set that up a while
It's
back.
been out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All that control, I thought we did that about
Well, we
4
did,
meetings
but
ago.
I guess, what happened to your policy
Well,
and
I'm gonna
procedure?
bring that
I
up.
thought you were
Yeah,
part of
that was your
that.
platform, Bill.
I'm gonna be talking, don't talk to me about it, okay? I am gonna bring it up when I get to, item 5, your finding on the bidding process.
Okay.
Because the town is operating under a new process, but not one that's ever been approved. Did you find that when you did your audit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, but
Because
we
I
have a
don't see it
process.
written in here. They have a written process, but that's not the one they're using.
Who's they?
They, the town.
So basically, does Park and Rec, are they given any money, budget to do things? This seems to be the only group that has this little,
Well, there's the tree fund too. I mean, there's another thing with the
Tree fund
tree.
is their own, that's a fiduciary fund, so.
Okay.
okay. And then when you talk about the library, I agree, that's sort of a different situation. That's gotta be more complex, that we're,
Well, that's a special fund.
it is,
Well,
it
it's
is.
taxpayer dollars on that.
Yeah, but who's watching it, I think?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, who's
That's
watching
exactly-
it?
Yeah, and there's somebody from the library who's responsible for it.
No, the day-to-day watch, not.
Well, she authorized.
Well, no, I mean, not even the overall and the day-to-day, who's watching it?
Well, I mean, the CFO has to follow the purchasing procedures to make sure it's properly authorized. And then the fund itself, I mean, she's gotta make sure it's properly spent out of the right fund. And he should come along, at least if it's material, he should verify.
Okay, who's signing the checks right now for the library? Do we know?
John.
John? I
John
mean,
signs the
because I
checks.
know, say we have the designers right now, the architects. Who signs a check to say the designers?
We actually, the council approved
The acquisition.
the architect.
Right,
Situation.
but when somebody sees a bill
When
and
the
says,
invoices
gee,
come
they.
in, when the invoices come in, they're paid by John. Now, I
They're approved
assume,
by.
I assume that the library committee signs off that, yes, the work was prepared.
Right.
Yes, I assume it's like Denise or.
I only see Mike Kashiwagi's signature.
Okay, so there needs to be, honestly, for me, I think, and, we're the audit committee, right? There needs to be some sort of sign off, and we've written that into the policy that never got implemented.
What happened to it? I remember you sent it out to all of
I
us.
sent
We
it
kind of
to you,
redlined it.
And we
We gave it back to
it's been
you?
sitting in Mr. Connor's office since he started.
It's
That's
been
gotta have been a year.
It's not been,
More?
and it's not a priority for him to get it done.
6 months?
still a long time. I mean,
Okay,
It's
so it
not a
sounds like,
priority for him to get it done. He's
but
busy on other
that
things.
impacts everything the
Well,
town does.
My point is this, when he gets it done, that's his business, and that needs to be the priority. I mean, he does work for the council, but doesn't necessarily, the council hasn't made it a priority for him, number one. Number two, regardless, the town is operating under a different policy. They're not following the policy that's written, that's approved. So there's only one policy that's written and it's approved, and we're not following it. I think that that's an audit issue, and I don't see it necessarily called out here.
I think in the other conditions, we
The only
already.
reason I'm bringing it up, by the way, is I'd like to get the policy approved.
Well, let's let you finish.
I-
Go ahead.
Okay.
I agree. So I think that's what we ask every year. And as Louis, that when we come during interim, we ask every year. And during the interim audit, we mentioned that also.
Yes.
So and we usually convey our message to Louis, and Louis update us what's happening. And I think on us, and the audit committee comes to the same meeting, everybody knows what's the status. And I think I don't think the auditors can force the town
No, but you need to
policy,
make
right?
it say, you know, this is I think that that's it's something that should be in the management report, okay? And I didn't see it clearly called out, although I, you know, I.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and so
I'll
I'm
be happy
pointing
to
it out and
say
saying.
Oh, okay,
It's
so,
just saying no.
okay, sure, in the recommendation,
Because it
we
just
will
gives
be
him
happy to
leverage, it gives all of us leverage to get it updated.
Okay,
That's all I'm
sure,
asking,
okay.
that's all I'm asking.
Okay, I didn't understand.
And so
that.
now management is gonna have to say,
Right.
city management is gonna have to say, this has gotta be a priority, thank you
Oh,
thank you
okay.
very much,
Sure,
let's get
sure,
it out, and let's
sure.
get it approved.
Do we all agree?
Well,
Yeah.
It's not a matter of taking a vote on this, but we're kind of trailing all over the
Right, I
place,
know.
so I just, that's what I'm trying to make sure.
What is the
Yeah.
proposal, Bill?
Well,
If-
yeah.
Yeah, if you have a proposal.
Well, my point, I was gonna bring it up when we got to 5, okay?
Okay, maybe
I'll bring it
we,
up at 5, and we just make an edit to it, I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
that you understood that there were.
Okay.
I totally agree, I'll be happy to.
Yeah,
Sorry, I did not understand what.
but that's a good point, Bill, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, let's Louise
Right,
go
so
through
well,
her.
so the other comment I was on, I don't think we bottomed out, was where it was on page 16,
Okay,
with the library fund.
right.
So, I think, I'd like to make a proposal that there at least be some sort of, on these funds, that there is a fund owner, and that person gets the accounting and has to approve them. I think that that's a reasonable request.
We don't have a name of a fund owner right now.
Why would we have a fund owner rather than going straight to Louise?
Because I think the fund owner is Corinne.
Is what?
Is the librarian,
The director.
the director of the library.
I don't think so.
Well, I think that we need to consider who's the real fund owner on the library.
The way it's supposed to work, because this is a donor city fund,
Yeah.
those are excess money that are returned back to the town because we have excess revenue. But
But they're
any spending of that donor city fund should be going through the normal budgeting process, which the town staff will propose what the spending for, say, next fiscal year is. That draft budget in turn should be approved by the library JPA so that they sign off on all the expenditure the town want to use that special fund for. And from there, then the town staff should proceed with those spending that are approved by the council